Today on Paralysis to Purpose.
I consider myself a survivor of gun violence because I always feel like, the person that tried to take my life gave me life. And I never started living until I lost something.
Yeah. Here we go. You can do anything you put your mind to. What seems impossible can be done by you. It may knock you down, but don't let it stop you. Got so much to give, a lot of life to live. You must go from paralysis to purpose.
This is Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast with David Cooks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. Make sure you review this podcast, like this podcast, share this podcast. As I always tell you, I have the greatest job in the world. I get to interview some of the most intriguing and inspirational people in the world. Today is no exception. This guy that we have today, he is an actor, a speaker, a model, a philanthropist, a disability advocate. He's the founder of Disabled, but not really. He's a CNN hero. He's a health and fitness expert also. And he just continues to make the world a better place and to change the world. It truly, I've been trying to get this guy for a while, and and his schedule is so crazy that I am super excited to have with us today, Wesley Hamilton, all the way from Kansas City, Missouri. You know what? I forgot to talk to you about some Gates barbecue, but you may know some better. So welcome, man.
OG. See, that's what I'm saying. Talking about Gates. We done leveled up a little bit on barbecue around here. Gates still, is going to make history. But if you ever come back to Kansas City, come around, we're going to have to check out some other spots because you'll be amazed at the come up.
Let's get started, man, because you have a wonderful story of what I call making a difference. And really, we talk about going from paralysis to purpose. And for me, purpose is best defined when you're able to serve other people. And that's really what you've done with all of the things that you're involved in. But we need to start at the beginning. You are a victim of a gunshot wound or of gun violence. Take us through that just for a moment, and then from there we'll branch off into what I believe is the most important part, the things that you've done since then.
So, all right, two things. We're gonna jump in, but two things, because you did say something that was powerful, and even though we'll elaborate, I do want your listeners to hear this because I affirm that as well. And it is that purpose is something, that is kind of created as you go into serving others. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of books. And Jim Quick, because I'll probably do some name drops, but Jim Quick is one of my favorite podcasts. It's called Quick Brain. And they talked about purpose. And it said, once you go into, once you are being driven by the things that you're passionate with, and you start to serve others with that passion, you fall into your purpose. And so I wanted to share that at the beginning because I think my life and my journey speaks to that. So when we talk purpose, people can understand now how my passion turned into serving others and ultimately became my purpose. So, yeah. Yeah. And then number two. All right. Now, I have nothing against this, but I consider myself a survivor of gun violence because, and now I take people within that, but I always feel like, the person that tried to take my life gave me life. And I never started living until I lost something, that in my mind, I couldn't accept. So that's just the way I look at it. But of course, we'll get into that. So,
I think that's great because there are three things that we focus on in the podcast. It's perspective, perseverance, and partnerships. And what you just talked on was perspective, because how you see a thing will determine how you address it or how you attack it. And so you don't see yourself as a victim. There's nothing in you victimized. I mean,
No,
you are about as far away from a victim as anyone I've ever seen.
Yes, I agree. So, man, I go quick into who I am, and born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. I acquired my disability at the age of 24. So just to really give people real quick background, I was literally a product of my environment growing up. There was a lack of leadership around my community. The things that I was exposed to mentally only put me in a crab in a bucket mentality. And I never saw myself outgrowing the mindset that was instilled from those circumstances. That put me in a position, where, when everybody talk about mindset, I feel like I had a very fixed one. And by being a product of my environment, I was just living a life that was designed for young Black men. So 5 days after my 24th birthday, I was having an verbal altercation with an ex-girlfriend of mine. She had a male friend in the home. It led to him calling someone else, which ultimately led to me being shot multiple times in my abdomen, which left me paralyzed from the waist down. I woke up in the hospital the next day. They told me I had a T11, T12 incomplete spinal cord injury. I remember the moment that I was told that I was in denial, right? Like I was in complete denial, just because, I'm like, man, this ain't real. I mean, I lived my whole 24, years walking. So I was going to be the miracle story, that I was going to wake up one day, my legs was going to move. So I was determined to just wake up and not push myself. And again, that just led to, lack of acceptance put me into more depression. And so after my first year, I couldn't accept it. On top of that, I was overweight. When I say overweight, I'm 5'4", 5'5" on a good day. Is
that with a good cushion or without a good cushion?
Probably with a good cushion. And I was 230 pounds when I was injured, but I think my max got to about 250. And so I never looked at my weight walking. So this is where the powerful stuff gets into it. But anyway, I never looked at my weight walking. It was something that I had just accepted. I'm not a bad looking guy. So I was cool with being chunky. I was very cool with that. But being in a wheelchair brought so many other complications. And when I wasn't willing to accept the fact that I was paralyzed and accept the fact that I had these limitations, that just caused more. Start off, I went back to work maybe 6 months later, started this full-time 8-hour job, didn't want to do press releases, didn't want to do the things I needed to do. So by the end of my first year, I was diagnosed with a pressure ulcer. It was about stage 2 at that time. I didn't accept it. Again, it was on my tailbone. I'm like, that's just a sore. I wasn't really when you didn't want to, when I was in such a denial stage for so long, I wasn't listening to how to take care of myself. I just thought, well, I'm just sitting here, not understanding that there were things that ultimately changed outside of just bowel and bladder.
Mm-hmm.
And
hold on right there. because we can laugh about this, but I've lived this with you. And I think that people don't really understand that it's not the wheelchair that's the issue.
Yeah.
There are so many other things physically that you have to deal with. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can probably say it. And I know I can say it. I have buried many friends.
Yeah, very much so.
Who have not taken this thing seriously and taken responsibility for their health.
Yes.
And for the quality of life that they can have. So
because I didn't take care of everything, I ended up, I wanted to get back. So I ended up being diagnosed after my first year with the stage 4 pressure ulcer. Okay, so it got from, stage 2 to me being in denial, going into, man, I really wanted to get back to my normal life. Like, man, I try to jump back to the streets. I try to do everything just because that's what normal felt like, right? So, but there was always something different, and we'll go in depth on that. But I'm a father, all right? I have an 11-year-old daughter. Well, I had got sole custody of my daughter 2 months prior to me being shot. So through this whole transformation, or through this whole stage of depression, before I started to transform, I had a little girl watching me. And so every day, I always thought, I didn't get custody of my daughter to feel like the weakest man in the world. And even though I had these circumstances happen to me, I still, in my mind, still wanted to show her strength. All right. So when the stage 4 pressure ulcer when the pressure ulcer got serious, I was put on bed rest. And so it went from a few hours a day to 21 hours a day, where I had to have an in-house nurse. I had a PICC line. I had a colostomy bag, and I don't have one now, but it was at that time because of where my injury was. I had 6 surgeries. My tailbone was shaved down twice. Like it was just, man, when I was tell people, like, I was defeated. Like there was no way. Like after a while, I just felt like I was a test dummy, right? And I remember one day just asking the doctor, I was like, man, what can I do to just be more active? Like, dude, I'm like, my daughter, like 4 or 5, I'm trying to take her swimming. I get mad when people take her to the park. I'm like, oh, I can't take her to the park. Like I'm in this bed every day, and he said, add more protein to your diet. And so he gave me some drinks called Ensure and a wound healing drink called like Rejuvin or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember the Ensure drink bothered me because my grandma drank it.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I'm in this mindset, like, I can't drink that. Like older people drink that. Like, you're going to give me this drink. Like, so now it's making me take myself from what I think is normal and put me in an uncomfortable stage where I care about how people see me because I'm worried about how I see myself. Right. So here's this still lack of acceptance. So I remember I went back home. I was like, man, what I got to do with this protein stuff? So seriously, out of just, and I, growing up, I might have made bad choices, but I wasn't a dumb person. Right. Like I was very knowledgeable in things. I went to school. Like I didn't graduate high school. I got my GED, but I went to like a lot of community colleges, taking up different courses. So this was something for me. So at this time, I knew I was in, 3 hours a day. I could get out. So I took up a dietitian course at a community college. So I went to school to be a dietitian. I'm just getting up through, and I did it all the way across town in Kansas, in a whole nother state, just so a lot of people don't understand what it meant for me to get out and put myself in a different bubble. Because now that I was on bed rest, all my people disappeared. I was in a different mindset. I was confined to 4 walls every day. And most of the time I was in the bed. So I was watching TV shows all day. I was just doing everything that, and then on meds all day. Right. Like, and so I had to get out and I needed that stretch. So I did online school as well as I did on campus. And it just put me in a different element. Well, in this process, I'm learning how to eat different. Every day I would DVR the Food Network. Man, I'm giving you the whole spiel, but every day I would DVR the Food Network, you know what I mean? And learned how to cook. Bro, I didn't know how to cook before that. Like I did some things, but not like that. Like I cooked, barbecue and anything that was around that, so I was learning how to cook things. Pinterest became my best friend. All right. So January 2015, because I love my timeline, I had my last surgery this I'll tell you how mentally ready I was. It was the beginning of January, and I remember asking the doctor, I said, man, you know, by this time, I know that my body's healthier, right? Like I know that I'm healthier. I'm kind of like doing 30 minutes at a rehab facility, working out a little bit, doing some cardio. They had this thing called New Step. So I love that machine.
Yep.
And so he's doing this cardio. I said, man, you know, I just want a second opinion. My mindset's different now. I'm like, why am I still here? I know I've been eating this protein. I know everything's changing. So, of course, they didn't want that second opinion to come in and knock them. So 2 weeks later, I had my surgery, right? I had my surgery to close me up. I had a flap surgery done.
Yep.
When I got on a hospital bed, that's when I got weighed for the first time since my injury. All right. I was 135 pounds. I had lost over 100 pounds, changing the way I ate, thinking that in my mind, I'm just healing myself, not understanding I was healing everything.
Everything.
And so again, I'm in denial. So even though my family be like, boy, you're getting smaller, you know, and you had those comments and my clothes was hanging off me, I was still in denial. You know, like this wasn't, I mean, I thought I was big boned. So what happened, right? So this is where so this is where it shifted. I never had the will or determination to lose weight when I was walking. And the fact that I could do it when the world and society saw limitations, it changed my mindset about how I saw myself, not only in the chair, how I saw myself as a person. And I knew at that point, the thing that you grow up hearing, if you want it, you go after it. Anything you believe in, you can get. Well, I finally believed in myself that I was going to create this change just to be a father. But now I done made this difference. I'm skinny now, right? Like I'm skinny. I'm like, man, I've got these pictures of me trying to show my abs and stuff. It was just, I had baby abs at that time because I hadn't really worked out. So September 2015, got my first gym membership, started traveling, you know, so double back real quick. I had 6 weeks to heal in that specialized bed, you know, after my last surgery. And I created Disabled But Not Really. I was like, you know, I don't know. It's just something. I had lost weight. And I didn't see a lot of people in wheelchairs that had that was really active or healthy. You might see something on TV, but not on your streets, not on a block. You know, everybody was kind of unhealthy. And I was just like, man, I did something. See, my perception of what I saw myself with a disability was because of how I saw things on the outside. You know, so like when I had embodied, I was okay with being overweight in a sense because I thought that was it. My feet used to swell up, so I wore Velcro shoes and sweatpants and Walmart t-shirts. You know that outfit. Like, I'm telling you, that was me all the time. Like, my confidence was low.
Let's undress a couple of things because you've given us a lot to work with. And,
all right.
And I know this, you're going to be like, seriously, I ended up recently in November of 2019, I gave a speech here in Milwaukee and I wasn't feeling great. Thought I had the flu, went to ER, turned out I had sepsis. And I ended up on bed rest, just like you, 3 hours a day. When you're telling this story, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was last year. And I didn't get kind of healthy enough for COVID to hit. And now you got to be in the, and I'm in the bed and the psychological game you have to play when you're in that state to get yourself in a position to be who you really are is a challenge. One of the things that I interpret in what I hear you say and what you begin to do was you had some personal responsibility. At some point, you determined that you needed to do something. How can we address it? What can we do? What are some of your ideas about things that we can do to help turn the tide, to help transform some of the plight that we see in our community?
Honestly, we need more leadership in our community. We need more ownership within our community. We're trying to bridge a gap and we still have our own. And I think that, we need to find a way to uplift one another and find a way to be able to collaborate and partner with each other within our communities. I think that it's so many opportunities that are happening outside of our community that is pulling people away. And I think that's a model that is supposed to happen like that. It happens everywhere. But I feel like people like you and I can push and drive, empathy. Like everybody's going through something. It's just that a lot of people in those communities, you can see their struggle. And, love is different and belief is a lot more. It's powerful. I know just as a young man, I might have got told I love you from my mom and stuff like that, but it wasn't like the men around were vulnerable enough to show and express love as much as they wanted to show strength, power, ego, right? And I think that we find that more. So a lot of my solutions are, because the racism and all that is real, the systems that are created is real. They're defeating us in many ways, but we cannot be defeated if we came together. And so, for me, and especially for me getting so, like, of course, we'll talk, briefly about like the things I'm doing now and what I've transformed my life into. But even those avenues that I've been in, I'm probably the only one, the only Black man. And then on top of that, I'm the only Black disabled man, or I might just be only Black man in the room for that day. Right. Like, and it became real for me. So like, even though I'm okay with being in those spaces, I also understand how uncomfortable I have to be in those spaces to open up doors for other people like me to fill up those spaces. And so the solution for me is making sure that I plant those seeds into my community and giving those young Black men and Black women the opportunities or the vision and ability to see that as long as they take control of their own lives and know that they can create the opportunities outside of their circumstances, then they'll be okay. The beauty of that is just me being able to be in this wheelchair and then for them to see the power in that. At least for me, my mindset is we have to go back into like a segregated mindset to build. Because as much as we're trying to bridge a gap. And the only thing that we keep hearing in these circles are a group of people that is talking about unlearning. Another group of people is talking about accepting. And then you got another group of people talking about, I'll be your ally if. And so at the end of the day, that's a lot of fight when we could just come together as a collective. And if we come together, what happens is I think one of my favorite rappers is Nipsey Hussle. And he say like, I don't hate y'all, I just love us. And for me, it's powerful because it's like, I will work with you. I will do whatever because I'm not against you. I have empathy and I understand. I see how your life was built. I see how it was created. We want to make sure that we collaborate. We want to make sure we build. But now we're understanding that just coming together, there's so much power and love in that. And I think that's where it begins. Because if we can't come, we're not together as a whole now. As a unit, right? Like there's egos, there's all type of stuff. So if we can become tight knit and we can have understanding, and then we teach more people how to read in our community so they can find that power, because it's all in a book. I think it was Reading Rainbow that told us that.
That's right. But I do think that people need to use the platform that they do have, just like you're doing, to make change and to make inroads, and to leverage the power of one, because you're going to be the only one in many of the places you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you understand that, then that becomes a place to leverage and leave the door open so that you can bring someone else, bring someone else with you.
But but just as we just quickly dab on that, because, we could talk, and I want the listeners to know it's not just about, we're talking about able-bodied Black people either, right? Like even with my work in my organization, what I do is that I realized that there were so many discrepancies with Black disabled people. And then I went back into what I've seen in my community, right? Like I never seen that many Black disabled people in my community, even though they existed, they've always existed. I never seen when I went to those rehab facilities, I didn't never see that, right? But that's why the things that I've created, because I am a Black man, because I have the understanding that now everything that I bring to the table is organic. I'm not trying hard to go grab a Black kid with a disability. I'm in a mama house eating a dinner. Like I'm chilling, you know what I mean? Like it's organic. I don't have to go find somebody that's a different ethnic group or part of the BIPOC community, because they're gravitating toward me because it's authentic, it's organic. And that's what I mean by community. Like, because we gravitate everyone to us, especially when we start to be more empathetic. When you see a proud Black person and just who they are, everybody want to be your friend, because they like, man, you showing me something different. It's the ones that are still products of the environment that are showing a different mindset that people want to think that's all of us.
One of the statements in my book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose, that I make is that I believe that the greatest gift that God, the Creator, has given to mankind is the ability to believe. Mm-hmm. The ability to believe. Why is what you believe so important in transforming how you think?
In my own context,
right,
growing up, I didn't believe in myself of what I was capable of. I allowed other people's beliefs to embody me, and that's the reality that I created. When I started to understand that it was up to me to create the reality that I finally needed to be me, right? Like to be who I am today. That belief instilled in me created change that changed the trajectory of my life. So the power of belief within yourself, it's important. It's important because it embodies you. It allows you to have all strength, the superpowers, the things people think is unreal. When you see the power of belief, the manifesting, again, I'm going off all these terms, but, from faith, manifesting, all those things, those are power of belief. You're speaking with intent. And when you turn intent into constant repetitions of saying it over and over and over again, it becomes a reality because you believe in it, and it's nothing going to take you away from your belief. So for anybody listening, I think that it is one, it's a road. I don't think you could tell somebody to just believe and they find it like something easy. It takes time and it takes practice, but that's even believing in your own faith, believing in yourself, understanding that it's a marathon. So again, the power of belief is powerful. It will change, and it's important, and it drives change because you become passionate about the things that you believe in within yourself. And again, it goes into purpose. I'm a fan of belief. I'm a fan of man. Everything I get now is something that I manifest in, and I just work. I always tell people, you believe in something, and then you work into that belief.
Wow.
And once you work into that belief, you'll get it. The universe is going to bless you because you showed it that you're not going to stop and you're not waiting on it, because belief, action comes behind belief, and that's you taking action within that belief.
One last thing before the break, then we're going to come back and talk about some of the things you're working on now, is that you continue, you're a lifelong learner. And there is something in you that gravitates toward learning. You were taking online classes, you were watching on TV to learn how to cook. Could you just for a moment talk about the importance of education and educating yourself and growing? Because that's what I've watched you, and you just keep evolving into different things. You're not the same guy I was looking at 6 months ago, literally, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing at all, but you're evolving and growing. Because could you just talk a little bit about that whole thing about internet, and you went to community colleges. You were doing all of that while you were sick. You had 3 hours, you said.
Yeah.
You said you had 3 hours in a day that you were able to get out, and you maximize those hours by putting something in your mind.
Yeah. Man, it was a term that I truly believed. I just truly believed this saying. It was, if you ever wanted to hide something from a Black man, put it in a book. And I embody so many stereotypes. Like, I was a product of so much. Like, I learned all these things at a young age, and it just, you would hear it over and over again, and you just started believing it, And so for me, I was a reader, I was a writer, but I was also in the streets. And I always felt like, I would be teased if I tried to, go after the things that I wanted to do, that I wanted to write a story or I wanted to read a book. So I never did it. But then when I got in this position and I realized that I had to push myself to be myself, I became more ambitious. Well, once it was even like going to school to be a dietitian. Once I opened a book on nutrition and started reading it, I fell in love with the knowledge, because that knowledge wasn't shared in our community, right? Like you mentioned the food desert earlier. So when you're living in the food desert, nobody's telling you the type of benefits food is giving you because you don't have access to it. So again, like for me, it was something like, oh, okay. And I started dabbling in different type of novels and different type of books that really just opened my mind up. After a while, it was something that I was hungry for. I became hungry for knowledge, because I realized that once I started to teach myself, open up books, I was learning things that the people I was looking up to knew. And first thing I'm thinking is this food and read this damn book. Like seriously, like that was the only thing that came to my mind. It wasn't like, oh man, he went to go get educated for this. No, like this person went and read this book. This person, like, because the knowledge I was now receiving was knowledge that was all around me, but it was knowledge that not so many people acquire because they don't open up a book. And because that, and then even outside of that, training myself into discipline, to focus on eating right, to even becoming an adaptive athlete, we'll get into that, but competing in CrossFit and bodybuilding, like that was something that I had to transform when I was overweight my whole life. Right? Like those were things that I had to keep practicing. But that goes back to my thing of what practice is. And you practice the things that you believe in.
And you're absolutely right. I think the knowledge is there. And the difference between knowing and not knowing is often just picking up a book and reading.
Yeah, it was all a book for me.
Yeah.
I think, once I got more into the books that I read now and the mindful, all that, I would host 5 a.m. empowerment groups. I did it for a while. And it was just a group of different people. I would select a book that was pretty challenging, and we would all decipher it. We would all break it down in our own perspectives, and how we saw it. It became powerful and it became enlightening. Like for me, I just kept teaching myself. I kept teaching myself how to be better mentally, because as long as I could sit in a room and understand that everybody perceives things differently, then that means I could actually sit in that room and have a conversation. Right. So again, the books gave me that. Books gave me that, and listening to them. I do a lot of audio books, listening to them. I got to hear from the authors' point of view, the author's voice, right? The tone changes. Like for me, it was, yeah. And so, as I'm training my body, I'm training my mind. So as I go do my cardio in the mornings, I'm listening to a book, and then in the evenings, I would read a book. So I became this person that only read every blue moon to a person that was reading three hours a day. Mixing from audio books to physical books. I like to go to sleep with a book in my hand, but it might not be full of like knowledge. It might be, one of those hood novels. But like I always got to keep it. But again, it teaches me, it opens your mind up. So knowledge is power, but you have to go search it. It's not just about what's in school. I'm a firm believer that education is very important. Just having the knowledge that someone else next to you has, it can really shift your mindset.
And what is great about what you just said is that that's accessible to everyone.
Exactly.
So this is a great place. We're gonna take a really quick break, come back, and then we're gonna shift into the modeling, the mobile gym. You talked about discipline, and I also want to have you talk a little bit about your health and fitness, because I mean, you were ripped up, and what you've done physically in and of itself is amazing. So we'll be right back on Paralysis to Purpose with Wesley Hamilton. You don't want to miss it. And I hope you got your pencil and paper, because I've been taking a lot of notes with this guy. We'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Paralysis to Purpose for more updates. Also, check out David's website at davidcookspeaks.com to learn more about his mission and purchase his book, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose.
The thing was when I started to elevate and I started to look at my life, I realized that sometimes people are so conscious to put you in one bubble, and when I realized that they was, oh, this is Wesley and this is what he do, right? Like they would, and it was like, it would always single me off. And it's like, that's all you can be capable of. And I was like, no, I gotta be a, not just a gatekeeper. I gotta be a, gate opener. I can't just sit there and guard it without knowing I got a key to it. And so for me, it was like, man, no, I got to go through more avenues, because I'm not just representing one community. I'm representing two.
Right.
And because I'm representing two communities, I'm opening up doors for so many. And so you can't put me in, when you think of a person with disability, all you think of as an athlete.
Yeah. Well, see, can we go there?
We can go there.
Because these are the things that people don't want to say. They either assume one or two things. You're a great athlete or you're incapable of doing anything. Those are like the assumptions. And if
you don't play basketball.
Right. If you play, and I played and did all that. But that's not all of who I am. And exactly. I think that, and let's spend a moment about being a father, because you know what? There are assumptions that go with being in a wheelchair about being a father. Can we just talk about that?
Yeah.
Because whether you can have kids or not kids, that doesn't mean you can be a father. That doesn't mean you can't be a father. Fathering obviously was very important. You talked about that earlier, and your daughter and what you wanted her to see in you as a father.
Yeah.
How is fathering? What is that like? I don't have kids. And I've coached and done a bunch of things and have mentored hundreds of kids, but I don't have a child. So what is that? What is that like?
Oh man. No, honestly, you're teaching, man, you get to be a teacher first and forefront, and it's like you're right there on the front line. Knowing that the seeds that you plant is going to sprout into a beautiful flower or something that's not, right? And so for me, again, knowing that I represent these different communities, knowing that I have the ability to, just being a mover and shaker that I am is great, because now I'm showing so much more, and I'm setting examples, because like you said earlier about me being a learner, well, my daughter gets to see that, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, I went to college and then I had kids and now I'm working this job, and you don't see the journey, right? Instead, she's watching it every day. I'm in the gym, she's watching it, rather she's visually or just hearing it or just know I'm there. Right. She sees the development in my body. She sees me eating healthy. So it's not just me saying, oh, you got to go eat right, and I'm not doing it. I'm leading by example every day for the things I'm teaching my child. So for me, it's great. Of course, there are other things that's like growth, right? So growth, you have things that you have to face, but I don't think that something's supposed to be perfect. I think everything is supposed to be challenging. I think Eric Thomas says it's the best. Like, if it was easy, everybody would do it, And so honestly, like, that's real. Parenting is not easy, but when you're up for the challenge and you know that you're creating, and this is going to be somebody that's leaving my legacy. I'm leaving my legacy with, right? And so, yeah, man, like this morning, my daughter woke up. I have her write our affirmations, especially if we don't have great days. Well, my bad. Especially when we don't have great days, we write affirmations about, integrity, confidence, leadership. So because we're talking about parenting, it can go right into it.
Yeah.
I think I chose to be an adaptive athlete. One, as we talked about challenges, I love obstacles, challenge, all that. But I remember being in the hospital and my daughter one day, seeing me get in my wheelchair, and she was like, "Daddy, you getting in your Superman chair." And I think that was probably the day that I saw more strength in myself, because she saw it. It was innocent. It was authentic. It was organic. It wasn't coached. It wasn't. And I was like, man, I gotta be Superman. I joke about it, but I'm like, I'm not a Superman fan. Like, I'd rather be the Dark Knight, Batman, hanging out in Gotham. That's me, bro. But you know what I mean? Like, if I got a red cape, I put it on. And so it gave me an ability to see myself different, and I had never really worked out before my injury. So once I got into the gym, all of it was new to me. I just became hungry for it, like you said, discipline. And that's how I got into just everything.
Wow. I mean, for people who don't know, make sure you go check out his website, his social media platforms, and you will see all of the things that he's involved in. And I would not swing at him. I'm just telling you right now. You may have a problem if he comes back at you. So he definitely is involved in fitness, health things, and he practices what he preaches. So that's what also, no one likes to be with a hypocrite.
Right.
And the fact that you do what you say and you say what you do is really important. Let's talk about your nonprofit organization, because there are some listeners out here who may want to help with that. You came up with it. It's called Disable But Not Really.
Piggybacking right off where part we ended about the hospital and like all of that, like as I was mentioning, through that 6 weeks of healing, I started Disabled But Not Really. I literally started in the hospital bed just from the way that I perceived disabilities prior to my injury, prior to me actually changing by getting healthy. And I just wanted to help people with disabilities be more active and healthy, because that's all I felt, at that time. But I wasn't knowledgeable about what was out there. I was just determined. I created a nonprofit organization, and it's nobody, it's not blind. You don't have to be blind to see that it's not too many Black nonprofit founders. So for me to be guided in that, it wasn't something that I had knowledge of. But I was a reader, so I got a lot of books and stuff, and I started listening to them and learned so many different things. And I went and traveled. I had been on 2 years of bed rest, so I started traveling, going to ability expos. I ended up in Ability Expo in LA, January 2016. So 4 years after my injury. And I found out about wheelchair bodybuilding and adaptive CrossFit. And so, of course, like learned about it, got into it, became an adaptive athlete. Going into this because then it shows the purpose of disabled but not really. Of course, it started off helping people be more active and healthy through nutrition because that's what got me there. Well, now that I learned about these sports that were for people with disabilities, I also learned about the community that these sports provided. It wasn't just a person in a wheelchair anymore. It was a person that was an amputee, a person that might have had MS or CP or all these other different disabilities. The only thing we had in common was that we were determined to push ourselves past our limits. And it was powerful. And I was like, man, I already got the name disabled, but not really. But now I'm looking at all these people and I see myself and I see the power and strength that I, have within myself. I mean, I was climbing ropes in my wheelchair. It's like, man, what?
and that's what I said too. What?
So it was those things that empowered me. And I just knew that if I wanted to create an organization, I didn't want to make it particularly focused on one demographic or one group within the disabled community, because, there are a lot of subgroups. And I feel like, we're all different. Together, we're the same because we become a powerhouse and we can push each other, and I'm more inspired, no pun intended, but I'm more inspired by a person that's an amputee that might have lost a limb than probably just someone that I have a relatable experience with, because, for me mentally, they're dealing with something that they every day that I just, my legs might not work, but if your leg is gone, you're dealing with something different and it's powerful for me. So disabled but not really was kind of breeded off of that concept, was that we have to be able to empower people with disabilities. And it cannot just be by making people feel comfortable. It's a way that you bridge a gap. So our mission is to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence. And we do it through programs that are based on fitness and nutrition. We our reach, our target audience, our market is really people of color. We're not against anybody else. We create an amazing, inclusive culture. You spoke about it earlier, about community, right? And so again, I believe that disabled but not really can bridge a gap in diversity and inclusion in such an organic and authentic way. When people see what you're doing, they gravitate. So me saying like, yeah, we're reaching BIPOC communities because they like this representation and resources doesn't mean that the other communities aren't coming because they see what we're leading. And so that's the beauty of it, that it's effortless in the reach that we're doing. But yeah, it's all about instilling courage, confidence, and competence, because those are the things that can help you have a overall better quality of life.
So not only is it health and fitness, not only is it adaptive sports, you literally, in my mind, have created a new space for modeling clothes. I'm trying to say it so our audience understands. I'm talking about being models on the runway. Until I saw you do it, I don't think I had ever seen it before. And in my mind, since we're being organic and transparent, as someone in a wheelchair that's been using a wheelchair for 40 years, I didn't even know that was a possibility. And what you've done, and this is what I love about creative people, you've taken something that seemed to be impossible and made it possible. To seem to be just like it could never, ever happen. And it was never, ever seen before on a small scale, much less a large scale. You've done it. When did you think of that?
All right. So, of course, after a while of being an adaptive athlete, and I was an adaptive athlete, and that was my only title for so long. Like you said, like I'm more than an athlete. You said it earlier yourself. And I wanted to make that something. And I had this Netflix special coming out. It in July of 2019, I think, Queer Eye. And I was on season 4, episode 2, titled Disabled But Not Really. And I was like, man, the whole world about to know who I am. And I don't want people to just consider me as an athlete, but I also know that there's going to be opportunities coming to me. So why won't I go try to find some opportunities organically? So I reached out to an agency here in my city before all the buzz, before all the publicity. And I was like, I reached out and told them I wanted to model. So I sent in some pictures and all that. They reached back. They set up a meeting. I remember the lady saying, that this would be her first time working with a person with a disability within her agency. But I came in there with confidence. I was like, man, cool. Like I'm in a wheelchair, but I always tell like photographers and stuff, I'll hop out of it. I'll do this, I'll do that. You know what I mean? Like just letting them be comfortable, right? No matter if I'm uncomfortable in certain things, it allows them to be comfortable to work with me. So I had already had that type of vibe going on. And so, of course, like, we sealed the deal. We said, all right, we're going to do this. And then couple opportunities popped up. I think it was My Beautiful Smile. Everybody talk about it, but maybe it welcomed people in. But so then it was like, a lot of fashion shows and things happening around my city. And I was like, oh man, I got to jump into that, and I was like, again, it's confidence. It was really confidence. I didn't care. I knew it was going to be obstacles. I remember my first fashion show, I had to be carried up the stairs because the stage, it wasn't a ramp, but and then even within that stage, it was a 2-tier stage. So I couldn't get down to the very front. So I didn't go all the way to the top. But I finessed the hell out of the little space I had. You know what I mean? And it was so good. And it was like, it was here at home. So it was a lot of people that knew me, but maybe not knew me in that element, right? Like, especially in the chair in that element. So it was like really just shifting people's mindsets. It became something. And again, like for me, I want to be able to represent us in many ways. And, when you think about modeling, I had never seen a person with disability that was a model. And I didn't see anyone that did model that was just organically confident, and for me, it was like, it was something that was just authentic. And I think just having the support of my city, I was able to get into a lot of those opportunities where then it started to be seen on a larger scale. And then that's when the larger, companies started seeing that, and they started to reach out and gravitate, because again, I'm a person that thinks of things having to be effortless because you're just passionate about it, and I became very passionate about it. And now I'm creating the same platforms, trying to find ways to create my own fashion shows that are more inclusive because I've experienced them, and put more people with disabilities on, because hell, we all need a stage.
At the end of the day, there is no self-made person. Everybody got some help somewhere along the way. And what starts with you, and we're going to end soon because I know you're busy. What begins with you as something that you personally do grows into outreach like immediately. You go so beyond yourself. It's amazing to listen to you. You start these things and you begin immediately. And that's what servant leadership is. That's what serving others is. That's what purpose is. It's always bigger than you, and it becomes bigger than you at the moment. And that to me is what, I think sets you apart from so many people, is that it's not about you.
No, never.
It is of you, but it's not about you.
No, not about me at all. It's bigger than me.
Yeah. What's next for you?
Well, right now I'm excited about my organization being featured as one of the nominees for 2021 CNN Heroes. Yes. So that's a huge platform. Being able to be recognized for our philanthropy work. It's amazing. So that's something that'll be going on the rest of this year. So I'm just looking forward to seeing where that takes us. I'm also looking forward to our mobile gym, right? So I know that you had mentioned that. So we didn't really get to reveal it or unveil it like we wanted to at our gala, because that was our whole goal, because it was rainy here, so we didn't get a lot of pictures and things. So we're going to do another event. But the goal behind our mobile trailer was, again, just the same mission that I just spoke of. Now we get to go into these communities and we can meet them where they at. Because there's a lot of communities that don't have the keys to understanding what health and wellness is. And all I believe is that you just plant a seed in someone and that can take them a long way. So our goal is to take this mobile gym and create different fitness and educational events that raises awareness within these communities, within these school systems, and shifting the perspective of what people see when they think of disability. So I think that is just going to be a beautiful thing. The reason why we choose fitness over a lot is because challenging yourself makes you believe in yourself. And you spoke about belief earlier. I don't think there's not one person that, took the risk to take a high jump or lift a heavier weight. This is something that they told themselves they couldn't do. And then I feel victorious after it was done. Like there was not one person that did not feel great, where it was like, man, I got to do that more because I believed in myself to lift that up. Right. And so again, that's where we are right now with the mobile gym. And of course, just, I train all the people that we work with one-on-one a lot. So we're looking at trying to develop like a facility, a fully inclusive facility. I just want to put it in the hood. I'll be blunt because there's no gyms there. I'd rather have people come to me. So that's kind of like the goals. And of course, I want to do it here in Kansas City first. But all the things that we're doing is our goal is to gear it up and scale it and put it in different cities and different communities and really make a global impact outside of just being social.
Yeah. Well, you're on the road to get there. I anticipate a book, a movie.
That's all coming.
Okay. Didn't mean to prophesy today on what you're doing and who you are. And I celebrate your success. I honor you for the things that you're doing and the change that you're making around the world. You may not know this right now, but history will look back at who you are and what you've done, and you will be known as a game changer.
Oh man, it feels so good hearing it. Seriously. Like you said, I've watched you just kind of comment on certain things. And so I've kind of peeped you out from afar. And so you've watched the journey, you watched things happen. And then the fact that you're in a living experience, it does feel good because, you're one of those people that me and some of my friends, right? We always call them the OGs in the game. Because you have so much knowledge that you can provide when it comes to Disability Act, things like that, because you did start at the beginning and then by being Black as well, right? Like you faced so much adversity. So like the knowledge that you have is powerful. So to hear it from one of our OGs in the game, like, yeah, man, it feels good. Like seriously.
I know. It is good. And if people want to support you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so it's I am Wes Hamilton all across the board on all platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, I'm all that. Holla at me, YouTube. If you want to see more about my story and my life, YouTube would be the best way. I have a lot of videos that I used to used to put out back in the day.
Yeah, they're good. I checked them out, people. You got a TEDx talk on there and everything. So, and I just listened over and over and over and over and over, and make sure you do that. So I am Wesley Hamilton, and that's across all social platforms. I wish you the best with the CNN Hero thing. I think that I hope you win that because you are truly in a different space that is revolutionary. And you and I both know that on the I don't know if I can say this now, but on the totem pole of diversity, people in wheelchairs aren't even on that totem pole.
Very much.
We need to change that. And if we're going to be inclusive, then let's be inclusive and not selective.
Exactly.
That's where we need to get to.
I'm like, I always tell people like inclusive, include us. I always tell people that. Every time I hear inclusive, I'm like, well, include us.
Yes. You know, and I think you're absolutely right. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. We went way over time. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. And thank you for all that you have shared with the audience today. And this is David Cooks reminding you, until the next episode of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Thanks for tuning in to Paralysis to Purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paralysis to Purpose on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To purchase his book, visit davidcookspeaks.com. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with David Cooks.
So for us, it was really a time for us to kind of show, okay, who are 6?
Yeah.
Let's show the world who 6 are. Because
Next time on Paralysis to Purpose.
we can't let the act of a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, skinhead be the lasting message.
Paralysis to purpose.